My friends, what a beautiful day to work on another Subaru. So we're continuing with the black STI, but we're gonna be getting saucy with this car. We're gonna be getting all the sauce. We're gonna go chooch. We're gonna chooch. We're gonna get some like saucy chooch in this car. So we have some stuff to do to prepare for future modifications when the engine goes back in, get all that stuff knocked out. So we're gonna be cannibalizing some of the AEM gauges from that car to put them in this one. The 17 STI is gonna get entirely new gauge setup, so I'm totally fine cannibalizing that AEM boost gauge and AEM air fuel ratio gauge from that car to put in this one. So I have the SMY gauge cluster on the way for this car, so that way we can get those gauges fitted up, but I wanna get the wiring knocked out today. We also need to get the boost controller in the car, and we also need to get that cam carrier back off the car, clean up all the seals and everything like that, just to prepare for when the new bucket shows up, because hopefully that new bucket is going to fit. So we're gonna be getting saucy with this car. I had a super awesome company. I'll give you guys more details on them once everything arrives. But they wanted to donate a turbo to the channel, so they are sending over an FP Black for this car. This car is gonna be getting real saucy on the dyno. Not quite sure what power output we're gonna shoot for, maybe 400, maybe 450. We'll see when we get to the dyno and what the tuner and everything says. I'm gonna give them a call to Monday, Tuesday when they open back up, just to run over things with them. So we got a big stock location turbo going in this car. We're gonna be making some good sauce, some good juice, some good boost juice. It's not boost juice, it's just sauce. We're gonna be getting saucy. So I mentioned this in the last video, but we did not get around to it. So we're gonna be putting the boost controller in the car today. Typically on all of the newer Subarus, STIs, WRXs, the boost controller is located on the actual engine. On these older ones, the boost controller is actually hidden over here under this little cover. So we're gonna get the stock 2-port boost controller pulled off of this, get the Cobb 3-port bolted up on there. I don't think we're gonna really run any vacuum lines today. We'll just probably get them like plumbed up to that. So that way, once we get the turbo and everything in, we can just like easily just bloop right to everywhere where they have to go. We also need to get those gauges ran. So I'm gonna show you guys where to run gauges on these older chassis. It's not too bad to do. It's pretty similar to the newer ones, like the VA chassis GR, same as those. And then we also need to come back over here, clean off this. We need to get the cams back out of the motor, essentially, get this cam carrier back off and clean all of that surface mating area back off, just because we got to pull it back off. So yay. Yay. So let's start easy. Let's knock out the boost controller. We'll get that done with today, just so that's one less box sitting in the trunk of the car. And for anyone who's curious, before I walk back there, yes, this turbo is sold. I just sold it this morning. So I do apologize, I guess. But I want to start clearing out some of the stuff in the trunk back here. So here is our boost controller, our Cobb boost controller. Let's get that guy installed. Well, that was probably the easiest install of the day. So all you gotta do is pull off the 3 screws. There's 2 wing nuts on the back. Undo the wing nuts. The old one comes out, the new one goes in. You can see it chilling right back there. So 3-port boost controllers in the car. I'm not gonna worry about doing any of the vacuum lens on that right now, just because there's no point. I'm gonna have, Melanie's gonna come out and help us today. So I have this set aside for her. She's gonna pull off the old TGVs, injectors, fuel line, all of that stuff off of this old manifold, because like I said, we're doing TGV deletes. We have the IAG ones coming, IAG fuel rails. We have, in one of these, we have ID 1300s. We have ID 1300s right there for this car also. So we're redoing fuel line, redoing injectors, redoing all that. So she's gonna get this thing torn apart for us. While she's doing that, I'm gonna run, actually, you know what? While she's doing that, I'm going to come over here and I'm gonna start pulling off the cam carriers, getting all of this cleaned up just so we can get this knocked out and done with. Then she's gonna help me with the gauge wiring for inside of the car, just so we don't have to try to fight and do that ourselves. We don't have too much going on today, so she wants to come out to the garage and help us out. So I'm gonna get the mini G7X camera set up on top of the toaster oven, just to time lapse her going through this. So, like I said, Melanie here is going to be the trooper for us and disassemble the intake manifold. So all you need to do is, see these bolts going around it?
Yeah.
Just get all of those bolts off of this guy here, and then get all the fuel line stuff. Like there's one right there, and then there's some on the bottom that hold the fuel line here. So just get both of these lower pieces off of the intake manifold. Easy?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Tools over there, you should just need a 10mm. While she is disassembling that for us, like I said, I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna get the cam gear off, get the cam carriers off, get the intake cam back out and get that bucket back out. I'm not gonna pull the exhaust cam off this time. Don't need to, already verified all like lash and measurements. So bolts going all the way around it, pull off all the 10mm, smack it a little bit with a hammer just to break the seal loose. Then I'm gonna go in there with some acetone, some brake clean, and a razor blade and clean up all the mating surfaces. So I went through here, got all of this cleaned up, all the old sealant off, got the cam carrier, the rear cam carrier is bolted back on. I just pulled the exhaust cam off just to make sure I didn't get any particulate anywhere. Got everything nice and cleaned, good to go. Cleaned up all of the old sealant that was on here, cleaned up the mating surface so that way when we go to put the cam carrier back on, everything's sealed up nicely. I also did the same thing on the carrier. I do need to get another can of brake clean to go over and clean all this stuff one more time just to make sure that there's no particulate hanging around on absolutely anything, because that's the last thing we want. And then while I was doing that, Melanie was over here gracious enough to pull off the old TGVs, the old fuel lines from the manifold. So while we have the manifold stripped apart like this, some of you guys wanted to see this thing maybe get color changed. I don't know. I don't have an oven big enough to powder coat this. I'd like to powder coat it, but in all reality, I don't have an oven big enough to powder coat this, unfortunately. I might do like I don't know, all the textured paint reviews that I saw on these things also always came out like super bad or like super wonky looking. So I don't think, you know what, we're just gonna clean it. We'll leave it red, not too concerned about it. So like I said, old TGV guys are out. Fuel lines are out. Those are not going back in the car. We have the IAG ones coming. Parent turbo inlet, probably gonna sell that even though I just got it, only because we need a 3-inch turbo inlet for that FP Black. But next up on the docket, so like I said, I do have the SMY gauge cluster coming for this car. It did come factory with an OEM boost gauge, but we're gonna pull that out and we're just gonna put in our AEM gauges out of the 17 STI. So I just went in there, fished out all of the wiring for it all, because while the motor's out of the car and while it's on jack stands, it is going to be the best time to run all of this gauge wiring, just to the extent where you're not going to see any wires. Everything will be hidden and it'll all look solid. So with the help of Melanie, we're going to run those wires inside of the car. We don't have the cluster yet, so we can't actually get the gauges installed, but I do want to get the wiring knocked out just so it's one less thing we have to worry about. So let's run some wiring, get this thing like continued progress on Senor Blabby here. So you guys might get excited about this. I don't know. I'm a little bit excited about it. So I got the old boost gauge out of the car. I mean, it worked just fine. No issues with it. One thing I do like about this factory boost gauge is, if you look on the back of it right there, that's the vacuum line that supplies the pressure reading to the boost gauge. If you come up here into the engine bay, that vacuum line comes straight out of the firewall. So, I mean, I'm going to leave this because I think it's an extremely like clean OEM plus look, because you don't see any of the vacuum lines. You don't see any of the wires. It just looks beautiful. So I'm gonna get the wiring down here cleaned up a little bit, because we have all that wiring that we have to tuck up under the dash. I already know where I'm gonna put it all. Same with this wiring. This is for the air fuel ratio sensor. So that one, Melanie right there, is gonna help me run it behind like the center console down there, behind like the radio and everything, so that way you'll never see that wire, because that's what we want. We want clean ran wires. Isn't that right? Yes. All right. Let's get back into it. I just thought it was cool. Well, actually, I didn't even show you guys. So, I mean, that vacuum line comes out like right here. So it's kind of cool because we can just have the sensor right there and then all the wiring. So, I mean, I just got excited about it. Let's keep going on this. Let's get these wires done with and the interior put a little bit more back together. Bam, gauge setup came out pretty fire, if you must ask me. So our access port wire, I got that one all nice and tucked back there. We have our gauge wires ran up on top of the steering column right now, just until we get the gauge bezel in. So we're not gonna put the gauges in today, but all the wiring is ran, all of it's hidden down there, which is the goal. But we're not done with gauge wiring yet. So next up is the air fuel sensor ratio gauge wiring. Now, whenever you go to wire these, they're pretty simple. It's pretty much the exact same on every Subaru. I'm gonna go through this grommet right here since our downpipe is right there. It just makes the most sense. To get to that grommet, you have to go down into the passenger floorboard area and like fish the grommet backwards to get it pulled out. Once it's pulled out, you can poke a little hole in it just so you can feed the wiring through. You don't want to completely destroy the grommet, otherwise you're just gonna end up getting a whole bunch of like shmoo through that grommet. So just be careful when you're cutting it. So I'm gonna go down there, get it like fished out so that way we can get the last little bit of wiring ran. And then all of our gauge wiring in this car is ran. Everything is good to go. Our head, our block is cleaned off. All of that stuff's cleaned off. Our intake manifold is stripped down. Making some good progress today. I'm waiting on a lot of parts to come in, but I'm doing what I can while we wait for parts. Oh, and we got the boost controller in too. Lots of good stuff. Lots of good stuff is happening. Boom, air fuel sensor ratio wiring, bam, right there, chilling. So all of our gauge wires are now ran. I need to get a sensor ordered for that for the downpipe. But everything in here is like nicely hidden. You cannot see any of the wires anywhere except the one sticking out above the steering column right now, because obviously I'm waiting on the gauge bezel to come in, but our gauges are just chilling right up there. So as soon as we get the gauge bezel dealio, we can get the last little bit of that wired up. Hello, Sam. So we got done what we could today. We have the new boost controller in the car. We have that Cobb 3 port in there, the AEM air fuel ratio boost gauge combo in there. Also, well, the wiring is at least done with, because that's the part I wanted to get done with. What else did we do? We got the bucket out, the old bucket out, well, the new old bucket that just didn't fit. We got the cam carriers and the heads cleaned up. I do want to say that I have done like 90% of these installs that we're doing right now on the channel before, and they all have dedicated install videos. So if you guys are looking for like super like detailed install videos of all that, it's all on the channel. I'll link most of them down. I'll link them all down in the description if you guys want to go watch that one, if maybe you're doing something similar. But I'm incredibly excited with this car, with the power potential that we're going to be making. So I need to get a header situation figured out, and I need to get an intercooler situation figured out. Once we have both of those, we're good on parts for everything, and we are more than capable of making 400 to 450 wheel horsepower all day, no problem, every day of the week. So once we get the clutch in, we get the bucket in, we can get that motor back in the car. Like I said, I already placed the order with ACT. So once ACT actually sends us the clutch, we can get that back in there. Like I said, I do want to get that motor off that engine stand, because our EG33, I posted this in like the live stream and a couple community updates, but the EG33 should be done here in the next like 2.5 weeks. And we need to get that big boy 6-cylinder over on this over on the engine stand, at least, so that way it's not just chilling on the floor. But that's all I got for you guys on this one. So I think it's a little bit shorter of a video. I don't know. I won't know till I go to edit this. But if you guys like the video, you know what to do. Go ahead and hit the like button. Turn it blue, turn it black, turn it gray, turn it white, turn it whatever color it turns. Just make sure you hit that button. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to be, hit your boy up one of these corners. No idea which one I'm going to put it in quite yet. And one last thing, it's a shameless plug. If you guys want to support the channel, grab some Drive hoodies. I'm almost out. I'm like that close to being out. And once we run out of merch, I'm going to do like V2 merch drop for like probably March or February. I don't know. Early next year we'll do it. But with that, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, homies.